If you count Game Boy Gallery, then Game & Watch Gallery 4 is actually the 5th Game & Watch Gallery. It's also the final one, and the only one on Game Boy Advance. Very fancy. Game & Watch Gallery 4 was released in Europe, America, and Australia in 2002, but it wasn't released in Japan until 2016 when it was put on their Virtual Console. It's also not the first Game & Watch Gallery to receive that treatment. So why am I playing it? According to YouTube, this is my 50th video, and I just hit 1,000 subscribers. Why am I making a video about Game & Watch Gallery 4? Well, the details of what went wrong to get us here are so extensive, so layered, so elaborate, that it would take its own video just to explain why I'm making this video. The short answer, which I'm hoping will suffice for now, is that I am trying to unlock a very specific game. I could just get video of it from elsewhere on the internet, but I want to play it. I want to put my hands upon it. I want to see it
with my own eyes.
But it's not just available in Game & Watch Gallery 4, no, you have to unlock it. You have to unlock it by playing other games in Game & Watch Gallery 4. And when I first got here, I thought that was going to be quick and easy. As it turns out, it is not quick or easy. So, we're gonna make a meal out of it. If I have to suffer through Game & Watch Gallery 4, I'm gonna make everybody suffer with me. That's my 50th video present. That's my gift for 1,000 subscribers. It's pain. I'm here to bring the pain. Fire, aka Fireman, is a classic. It is a staple of the Game & Watch Gallery series. Originating in 1980, it was in Game & Watch Gallery 1, 3, and 4, and a variation of it showed up as a bonus level in one of the Earthworm Jim games. The original features folks jumping out of a burning hospital, and you have to bounce them to the ambulance. In my opinion, the original sucks. I'm sorry, it's just true. A lot of these games were not very fun games. The modern remake is a little better just by having some variation to the types of critters you gotta bounce along, and instead of a bunch of guys rocking at the same pace, you get Toads and Yoshis and the occasional Bob-omb and Donkey Kong Jr.'s, which raises some questions I'm going to be thinking about for the rest of this playthrough. And they all have different bounce heights that makes their trajectories more interesting and makes juggling them for a long time more entertaining. A common theme with these Game & Watch games you're going to notice is that a lot of them are very tedious. They are very repetitive. There is not a lot going on. It is smashing the same buttons over and over and over, and it gets a little faster over time, but your greatest foe is rarely the game. It's your own patience. It's your own ability to tolerate this for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, half an hour. When the games change at all, it is not a whole lot, and you have to get some pretty high scores in order to get the stars that you need to unlock the other games. So, patience is a virtue. I tried Rain Shower next, and it's alright. It's weird. It's a weird game. Aside from having the same very slow pace that I mentioned before, the gameplay revolves around jerking 4 clotheslines back and forth. That's pretty much it. Like, every one of the 4 clotheslines has a binary state, and you shuffle it so that stuff is out of the way of things falling from above. In the classic version, it's raindrops, and you're trying to keep your clothes dry. Makes sense. In the new one, I say new like it's not from 2002. In the modern one, no, that doesn't sound right either. In the most recent version of this game I played, Bowser is sitting up in a tree, throwing water balloons full of paint at babies, and Mario does absolutely nothing to stop it. He just kind of moves the babies out of the way. And in this case, I'm not entirely sure both babies are babies. That might just be a regular-sized toad. After a while, Peach joins, but she's also not here to help or to stop Bowser. She's just here to swing and potentially get hit by water balloons as well. Very strange. All I can think is that this has to be some kind of training setup, or maybe the representation of some weird Mushroom Kingdom nursery rhyme, and we just don't have all the context. The classic version does not fool around by building up to how many shirts you got to manage, it just jumps right into it with all of them. I assume if I kept playing the modern version, more characters would show up to swing and get hit by water balloons, but frankly, the game's pace is just not for me. The classic version isn't much better in regards to pace, even with all of these shirts. However, I will say this, the intensity of the classic version is off the charts. The music, or lack thereof, the way the sound effects sort of form a beat, slowness is sort of honed into a tense weight, a killer at the door sort of feeling, rather than the waiting for the bus to get here feeling I was getting from the other version. I'm not going to say classic Rain Shower is good, but I am going to say it's got something going on. I felt like I was being interrogated. Like, if one of these shirts got wet, they were gonna shoot my dog, and I don't even know who they are. I don't even own a dog. Mario's Cement Factory is another heavy hitter. It's been released and re-released so many times that I'm not even gonna bother listing it all off. Just know that it's a whole bunch. It even got a mini classics release back in 1998. It's that good, or at least relatively. In this version, it's a cookie factory, I guess. They are making cookies, but the name of the game is still Mario's Cement Factory. And there's not a lot of workers here, and there's a lot of wiring and stuff exposed in the background. The entire place feels pretty barren. Also, the cookie factory is haunted. I don't want to accuse Mario of anything, but there's definitely something sketch going on here. All I can think of is this one episode of Doug, where Doug found out that a local ice cream bar, I believe, was being made with concrete. Like, just wet cement was being poured right into the mixing. I just checked because I realized I can do that. It was the Bluff Scout booster bars. They were being made accidentally with concrete. And yeah, that's the first thing that pops into my head and the last thing that pops into my head with this game. We are making cookies with wet cement. We are just dumping concrete straight into them there Yoshi cookies. Yoshi'll still eat them. He don't give a shit. I don't know where this toad is taking those other cookies, though. That's maybe an issue. Maybe he's taking them to a landfill. Maybe this is just to get rid of the remains of the old Yoshi cookie factory, and also Mario's Cement Factory in one fell swoop. I feel like Mario's Cement Factory is almost good. I know that sounds condescending, and it kind of is. It's not a very fun game, but it's not very fun for reasons that are, I think, fixable, very easily fixable. I spent so much of this game just standing around, waiting for cookie dough to come down the pipe. And whenever it does, sometimes it comes down a whole bunch at once in one place, and when that happens, the game suddenly becomes difficult for a couple seconds. But I think that's random. It's not triggered by the game running longer or me getting a higher score, it just kinda comes and goes. Sometimes the game decides it's going to be hard, and the rest of the time, you can sleepwalk it. The ghosts also just don't offer a whole lot. They're more obnoxious than anything, because I still have to pull the switch, I just don't get points for it, if it's a ghost. Otherwise, the only times I'm at risk of overflowing or spilling over is if I was already going to be at risk from spilling over because a whole bunch of stuff happened at once. The ghost has little if anything to do with it, he's just kinda there. Why is he there? Ghost just wants to be a cookie. I can't say I blame him. I've never been a cookie. I can't tell you if it's worth it or not, but if somebody offered me the chance to become a cookie, I can't say with certainty I'd turn it down. I don't know. And you know it's warm in there, and he's gotta be cold. He's a ghost. Anyway, if you're looking to make the next Super Crate Box, or Vampire Survivors, or whatever forgotten gaming gimmick gets turned into some big blown up affair and makes you $1 billion, this is actually a good place to look. I think there is some untapped potential in Mario's Concrete Cookie Factory. Donkey Kong 3 is actually a remake of the Game & Watch Micro vs. System remake of the original Donkey Kong 3, which itself was, of course, the third Donkey Kong. I believe the original Donkey Kong 3, not Donkey Kong, just, yeah, you know what I mean. The original starred Stanley the Bugman, but this modern remake is instead starring Mario. And it's another one of those scenarios I can only really contextualize as dudes goofing around. Just guys being guys. Boys doing boy things. You're shooting bubbles at each other, but the bubbles don't do anything on their own. They don't hurt Donkey Kong or Mario. But they do push this fireball around, and they do push this ghost around. And the goal is to push the ghost or the fireball into your opponent. This is another one of those games that I can imagine with a little more oomph, a little more variation, a little more choice. You could really have a stew going. Like, this could really be a game. As it stands, though, the ghost pretty much dominates everything. Once it gets close to either Donkey Kong or Mario, the ghost will start heading that direction on his own, and at that point, you really can't stop him. Your bubbles cannot come out fast enough to get the ghost away from you. It puts you on the back foot in a way that is completely irrecoverable, because you have to turn around in order to refill your water gun, and you cannot refill it fast enough or with enough bubbles to do anything about that ghost. All you can do is delay the inevitable for a few more seconds, and if your opponent puts any additional effort into it, you're done. You're cooked. It's over. My main strategy in this game became early game ghost. If I can secure the ghost as soon as the round starts, I am the winner. The problem is, once again, a little bit of RNG. If the game decides the ghost is going to dodge every shot after I fire it, there's nothing I can do about that. If the game decides that the ghost is going to put his back to the fireball so he can't be pushed, I can't do anything about that either. All I can do is wait and hope. Out of all the matches I've played over and over and over, I think I got hit by the fireball twice, and I think I managed to hit Donkey Kong with the fireball once, completely on accident. Every other match came down to that ghost. Either I died to the ghost, or Donkey Kong died to the ghost. Ghost is the kingmaker. Ghost is the most important player in the game. You figure the ghost out, you solve the game. Donkey Kong Jr. is, surprise, the portable home version of the arcade game Donkey Kong Jr., both of which came out in 1982. You, brave monkey baby, must collect keys to open cage of Monkey Daddy. He's being held captive by Mario, allegedly, but Mario doesn't seem all that into it either. It's kind of frustrating how you have to collect the same key multiple times in order to open the cage. You open it in sections, like a corner at a time. It's awful. And then each key gives you very little points. Even opening the cage and going to the next level doesn't really give you that many points. God help me, I think I'm starting to develop theories about Donkey Kong Jr. He shows up enough in Game & Watch Gallery 4 that they're making me think about him. Boxing is the game on here I can play the longest with the least amount of effort, and it's not even really a contest. In boxing, you have agency. You have control over the pace of the game. You can force the opponent to act, make the CPU move the game forward. You don't just have to sit there and wait for stuff to show up and for things to happen. You can make the things happen. So it doesn't feel as tedious. It doesn't feel as much like I'm just running in circles. However, I am definitely running in circles. Boxing only has 3 opponents: a Wiggler, a Boo, and Waluigi. and then when you get done beating Waluigi, you go back to Wiggler. I would like to tell you that the game gets more difficult over time, but I'm not entirely convinced that it does. Sometimes I would see a flurry, a blitz, a combo from the opponent that would catch me off guard, but it happened just as frequently in the early game as it did when I was multi-time champion. Sometimes enemies would turtle up and play defensively, and that made things a little more difficult to disarm, but again, it didn't seem to occur more frequently later on, it just seemed to happen whenever it happened. I'm not sure if that was the computer playing smarter, or if it was just serendipity on the part of the RNG. Otherwise, the game plays like a cheap version of Punch-Out, and that's fine. I like Punch-Out, so I played boxing. And I played boxing. And I played boxing. I am not exaggerating when I say there was a point during this game that I paused it, went and took a small nap, came back and picked it back up and continued playing. 99 fights is the number of fights they will give you credit for, and I know that because I got there. I hit the cap. Boxing is one of the only games on here that I have gotten any stars from, and I got as many as I could from that version of it. I haven't even tried classic boxing yet, because the amount of regular boxing I played was enough to unlock another game. Not the game I wanted, but a game I'll definitely try. So I'm taking a little break from boxing, but before I do, I want to talk about it. At first, boxing seemed very straightforward in its presentation and its purpose and its everything. It is boxing. It is Punch-Out but sideways and with fewer approaches to combat and with less variation in your opponents. Like, I get it, you get it, we all get it. But the most dangerous thing you can give me is time. And sitting there staring at the screen, punching the same Wiggler and the same Boo and the same Waluigi over and over and over, I had a lot of time to think about the punching and the Wiggler and the Boo and the Waluigi. Despite the symbols used to represent Luigi's victories, I don't think these are official bouts. I don't think this is officiated or overseen in any way. There is no referee, there is no audience, there are no cameras. The ring says boxing, but the only person fighting with just their fists is Luigi. Wiggler swings his whole body into it. Boo is wielding a smaller Boo like it's a cudgel, and Waluigi is doing what definitely looks like Muay Thai. This feels more like sparring. I know training and guys messing around is an excuse I'm getting a lot of mileage out of in this video, but really all these Game & Watches kinda feel that way. They're not important parts of the Mario chronology, they're little moments between. Things off screen, off camera, out of the limelight. Luigi getting training from a Boo is kinda funny to me, as is the idea of Waluigi offering some tips to Luigi, mostly as an excuse to beat him up and show him his cool Muay Thai moves. I also feel like Game & Watch Gallery 4 has a strong theme of ghosts, and I don't know if that's ominous or foretelling or how that works with it being the last of the Game & Watches, and being a series that mostly collects old games, dead, forgotten games. But you fight a Boo in the boxing game. There's Boos trying to get into your cookies in Mario's cement factory. The ghost is the real secret weapon in Donkey Kong 3. Ghosts, this game is about them. I think the biggest tell for me in boxing, actually, is Wiggler's face. When you knock Wiggler out, he gets mad, but that's when he stops fighting. Or she stops fighting, I couldn't tell you. Normally when a Wiggler gets mad, that's when shit gets real, but in this case, that's when the Wiggler backs off. And I think that shows a sort of deliberateness, a purposefulness. Wiggler is trying to remain patient, Wiggler is trying to keep it together. That might be part of why Wiggler's here, that might be what Wiggler is training with these fellas. And honestly, seeing a Wiggler take multiple punches to the face and not get mad is pretty impressive. Normally, they can't take one jump without completely losing it. The little Boo being swung as a weapon shows dismay whenever the bigger Boo loses a fight, so I'm thinking he is also in on whatever this is. Like, he's not being used against his will, he's definitely part of it. Why or how he further participates beyond being the weapon, I do not know. I don't want to speculate, but the signs are there, the evidence is present. But beyond that, I think I've said everything I really could come up with to say about all the games I've played previously. The process of getting stars and unlocking games is pretty slow, but I should mention before I move on, the little videos that play if you wait long enough. If you hover over the name of any game in Game & Watch Gallery 4, and then let it sit there, eventually it'll play a little movie for you, and some of these are pretty lame, but a couple of them I thought were cute and pretty funny. So what did I unlock? Chef is a widescreen Game & Watch that was released in 1981. It's in Game & Watch Gallery 1, 2, and of course 4. It may remind you of Mr. Game & Watch from Smash Brothers and one of his more popular moves. Are they flapjacks? Are they sausages? I'm still not entirely sure. Chef is not the game I'm hunting for, not by any stretch. There's something else, something meatier, juicier, that I'm after. But Chef is pretty cool, and there were some details in this game that were mentioned to me in the comments section for my video about Yoshi Titties, so I'm kind of excited to see that play out. Wait a minute, what is he doing? What the fuck?